Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to talk about functions with default values. So we can assign default values to parameters of a function. So if no argument is provided, the default value is used. Here I'm having a function called greet. I'm declaring it using the def keyword, and I'm having a parameter here, but this is a bit different from what we saw so far. Previously, we were having a function, for example, called def hello, and it was having the name and it was printing in the output for us the hello message and then, and then the name. Okay, this is what we saw so far. So when I call this hello function, let me comment these two lines. So when I call this hello function and I'm having an argument here, so when I call it, it says hello Reza, okay? And when I call this function with no argument, there is an error here. And we saw that that this error will come up when we are having an argument in the parentheses for the function when we are declaring it. Okay, so in order to avoid this error, we are going to have functions with default values. So here I'm having a function called greet with default values. So it has the name again, it has the same argument, it is having one argument in the parentheses, and it has this part that is extra. What is this part is going to do is the following. Name equals friend, and this function, when it is called, it is going to print hello and then print out the name that is used when calling this function. However, we can call this function with an argument and without an argument. So when I call this function with an argument, it is going to say, for example, hello Reza. But when I call this function without any argument, it is going to say hello friend. This is a function with default parameters or default values. So when I call this function now, so let me comment this part. So when I call the greet function and I'm having Charlie here as the argument being passed to this function, and when I run this code, it is going to say hello Charlie. Okay, but here when I call this function and I put nothing in the parentheses, if I call the hello function with empty parentheses, we saw that there will be an error. Why? Because it requires an argument. But when I call this function greet, it requires an argument indeed as well. But when I call it with empty parentheses, it is going to by default set this friend string equal to name and assign it to the name, and then consider that name in the output. Whenever I call this function with no argument, it is going to use this default value. This is why we call them functions with default parameters or default values. So let me run the code. Now I'm calling this function and I'm passing no argument. It says hello friend. In the next line, I'm calling the function and passing an argument. It says hello Charlie. Okay, so let me review it one more time. Functions with default values are like this. When we are calling the function with an argument, it is going to place the argument here. So when I call the function with the Charlie argument, Charlie string, it is going to set Charlie to name, and then in the output says hello Charlie, as we see in the code here. But when we have the greet function being called with empty parentheses, it is going to by default use the friend keyword here and put it equal to name and print hello friend in the output. Okay, so this is how a function with default value would work. We learned that this is not possible in normal functions, because in normal functions, when I have this hello function and it has no default value, I must have an argument when I'm calling this function. Otherwise, if I call this function with empty parentheses, it is going to return an error for me. And how we can understand that a function is a normal function or it's a function with default values? It's a good question if you're having it. This is the answer. So this part shows us, okay, this is a function with default value. This is a sign for us to understand. When we see this equal and certain value equals to, for example, the argument of the function, we should understand, okay, this is a function with default value. So when I call this function with my own argument, it is going to use my argument. But when I call this function with no argument, it is going to use a default value itself for that function. Thank you for watching.